Hello, and welcome to another edition of Ask the Professor, a crowd-supported, crowd-driven feature where we answer your questions on everything from economics to political philosophy, culture, history, all the stuff that matters to us in our life together as citizens. And today's question comes from Thomas, and he says, should selling kidneys be legal? He doesn't mean by a butcher. He doesn't mean selling anybody else's kidney. He means selling your kidney. And this, I think, is an excellent question because it forces us to think about fundamental questions about our lives, about our rights, about the meaning of existence, and how, in practice, to safeguard our right to live as we should. There's an obvious answer. We'd say, well, no, because that would be a silly thing to do. But maybe it wouldn't. Or that would be a greedy thing to do, but maybe it wouldn't. And in any case, both of those beg the question, should it be illegal to do something silly? Should it be illegal to do something greedy? Will our lives be more meaningful, or at the very least will we be less dangerous to our fellows, if there are rather strong legal prohibitions on our doing things that are obnoxious or just plain dumb? And the answer that I would give here doesn't totally settle Thomas's question, but generally speaking, it's no. I'm very much with John Locke that the starting point of any analysis is that we do own ourselves. Actually, Locke believes that we kind of had ourselves on lease from God. But at any event, nobody else owns us. Our physical bodies are ours. We are not slaves. Our time and our labor are ours. Again, we are not slaves. If it is not the case that our time and labor belong to us, if someone else can tell us when and where and how to work, and then can take the fruits of our labor, then we are slaves. And that, I think, is an important point to bear in mind. We say slavery, you imagine a cotton plantation or Spartacus or something of that sort. But if you say that the community may, through a democratic vote, through the state, tell us what to do and then take what we have done, that is, in fact, asserting that we are not masters of our own selves. Now, this idea of self-ownership is, of course, not unlimited. My right to swing my fist ends where your nose starts. There are rules about how we may exercise our self-ownership, essentially derived, though, from the same premise, that other people own themselves, and we may not do such things with our own freedom as would deny or infringe their self-ownership. And I think it is actually fairly straightforward to build a good and moral public order on this premise. Richard Epstein does this in simple rules for a complex world, where he talks about you have the right of self-ownership, the right of first possession, the right of free exchange, and then the right of tort, so that you can enforce your rights should someone challenge them. And says you've got a libertarian universe, then he adds two more. One is the takings power, that if there are free rider holdout or transaction cost problems, the state can actually drive through bargains that would be impossible to make privately, but that do suit private convenience. And then there's a lifeboat principle. If you're out in the woods and you're in danger of freezing to death and you come across a cabin, you can break in to get shelter, and there is no breach of the law as there would otherwise be, though you have to pay for the door, of course. Anyway, that's one way to construct a public order. Once you start bringing in other rules, Epstein says, and I think he's right, you get self-contradiction built into the system, and you never do get clarity, and everything turns into a political fistfight. And that is not the path to the good life. So, having done my Lockean prep, we come back to this question, well, if I own my body, can I sell my kidney? And there's a strong argument for saying yes. Because as with markets generally, we know that there are people who need organs, and we know there are people who have organs, and we know that you can part with one kidney and still be healthy. So the best way to make sure that those who need kidneys can get them, and that those who need them least are the ones who are giving them up, markets are the answer. And I might say, oh, but what about the person so poor and desperate they have to sell their kidney? And this is a subset of this general argument. Markets are all fine and good, provided you're not poor, but if you're poor, you're desperate, and then your bargaining power disappears and you get ruthlessly done in. And there's no doubt in my mind that in a free society, we have a profound obligation to look after the less fortunate and not to see them with their backs to the wall. But that doesn't negate the fact that if you do have your back to the wall, if you are faced with financial disaster, doing something that helps fix the problem, even if it's not what you wish you had to do, is better than being in the same desperate situation and being denied the right to do the thing that would help you out. It's why minimum wage laws are a bad idea. They don't solve the problem of needing to work for $10 an hour. They just take away the option even of doing that in a tight corner. So there's a very strong argument that we should be allowed to sell our kidneys. But there's something queasy-inducing about that, and we ought to listen, not have our behavior dictated by that kind of reaction, but when it comes up to think, okay, why? Why am I squeamish about this? Might it be that the human body is not just another thing? Because if the human body is just another thing, there's really nothing wrong with murder. It's just this animated, annoying bag of meat that can't even drive. You know, it's a very dangerous road to go down to say, well, the human body is just one more thing. Because the human body is where our spirit is housed, or, if you'll permit me, our soul. And it is not who we are, but without it, we cannot be who we are. It is why a lot of people, when you say, can we sell our kidney? There's another obvious question. Can we sell sex? Is selling sex the same thing as selling skillet pizza making? And 98% of people see immediately, no, it's not. There's an intimacy about sex connected with, yes, that thing we forgot, reproduction. And with our innermost essence, it's so intimate that there is something wrong with just putting it on the table and saying, what am I bid? And I think, though, in a lesser way, that also affects the sale of organs. It is not something to be undertaken without regard for the fact that our body is not the same thing as our suitcase. You know, it's like if somebody were to say, well, I'll pay you $1 million to cut off your leg, just because I think it'd be funny. And should a person be allowed to accept that offer, or is there something inherently degrading about accepting mutilation? But then again, you'd say, what about somebody who's in desperate financial circumstances, can't provide for their family, and for some reason someone comes along and says, if you cut off your leg, I'll give you $1 million, and they see that they can educate and feed their children, that they can afford medical treatment. You know, sure, it's Canada, we have socialized medicine, but even here there are treatments the government won't provide that you might need. Should the person have the option of accepting this degrading offer because their situation is such that it seems to them to be a good bargain? And I am very reluctant to step in and say, even if it seems to you to be a good bargain, I will not permit it. You know, I don't have an easy answer to this. Like, I don't have an easy answer to the question, should prostitution be legal? But having worked it all through from both sides, my answer is yes, you should be allowed to sell your kidney. It'd be very nice if you didn't have to. Let's try and get to a situation where nobody has to, except somebody needs kidneys. So somebody's got to give them. We need them donated. It's not urgent that we stop one person from giving another person a kidney. It's just that on the whole, we'd rather it not be done for money. But we could raise money so people can afford to buy kidneys. And I would very reluctantly, but yes, I would legalize prostitution on the grounds that if a person is selling sex out of financial necessity, psychological difficulties, some combination of the two, you don't improve their life by confronting them with jail time. It is easier to get out of prostitution if it's not illegal. But at the same time, I'm not making a utilitarian argument. I'm saying people do have the right to do things that are wrong, but we should be clear that they are wrong, and we should offer the kind of supports that we can so that they don't find themselves obliged to do that kind of thing. So, yeah, Thomas, it's one of my more uncomfortable answers, but yes, you should be allowed to sell your kidney. If you're enjoying Ask the Professor and you have a question or comment that you'd like to make, this URL will let you do it. And if you value this and my other work and you want to help me keep providing it, and you're not already a sponsor, click here and make a one-time or monthly pledge. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.